What's up everybody, my name is Kyle, and today I'm going to do some film reviews. As we are now halfway through this year, I've been watching quite a lot of new releases and thought it'd be good to review them all in this video. Without further ado, let's begin, starting with the first film I'm going to review, which is Dune Part 2. Directed by Denis Villeneuve, this follows on from the first part, where Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Overall, I definitely preferred this over the first part. That felt more like plot development for this. I guess in a way the sequel made me appreciate part 1 more. Timothée Chalamet's character arc is definitely more progressive as he becomes more of a warrior, and the Fremen's Lisan al-Gaib. The action, cinematography and acting were brilliant, and of course I definitely believe the visualization of this film is absolutely stunning and rich. This is something you need to watch on the big screen. Religion certainly plays a big pivotal role in this film. It certainly was felt more in this than the first film. I suppose naturally it aligns with Paul Atreides becoming more powerful, and thus leads to him becoming the prophet, holy saviour of the Fremen. Overall, I'd give Dune Part 2 a 9 out of 10. It felt more progressive and grander. I'd give the first part an 8.75 out of 10. Moving on to the next film I'm going to review, which is Argylle. Directed by Matthew Vaughn, this follows recluse author Ellie, who writes spy espionage novels. But as she begins work on a new book related to a global spy syndicate, she realises that it starts to mirror covert actions of a real-life spy organisation. The line between reality and fiction begins to blur. Overall, I just found this film completely disappointing. As Matthew Vaughn was also responsible for the Kingsman films, I was hoping for the same level of charm and style, but this was just a blander version of that series, trying to capture the magic of the first Kingsman film, but it didn't reach the same level. It was completely predictable. The visual effects just looked awful, and even those Kingsman-styled action sequences just didn't look that good. I felt that even the twist and reveals are also kind of underwhelming too, probably due to the film's predictability. I would say the only positives of this film were the novel backstory, casting Sam Rockwell and Bryce Dallas Howard as lead protagonists. They were good choices. And Alfie the Cat was probably the scene stealer of the entire film. Overall, I would give this film a rating of 5 out of 10. The next film I'm going to review is Monkey Man. Directed by Dev Patel, this follows Kid, an anonymous young man who spends his nights battling in an underground fight club, but after years of suppressing his true rage, he finds a way to infiltrate the city's sinister elite circle, which should in return help him seek retribution and settle the score with the men who took everything from him. Overall, this was everything I wanted for Dev Patel. This was epic and should hopefully lead to him to feature in lead roles of big Hollywood action flicks. I absolutely loved the subtle on-the-nose references to John Wick, the gritty fighting and various themes explored in this film, from poverty to human rights and embracing who you are as an individual. I would say my only negative would probably be the use of shaky handheld cam footage. It kind of made the film difficult to watch in places, but I suppose in the grand scheme of things, it was a pretty minor thing, and I don't have too many complaints. Overall, I would give Monkey Man a solid 9.25 out of 10. What a great vengeance film, and here's to more Hollywood action films starring Dev Patel as a lead role. Moving on to the next film review, which is Imaginary. Directed by Jeff Wadlow, this follows Jessica, who moves back into her childhood home with her family, including her young stepdaughter, Alice, who begins to develop an eerie attachment to a stuffed bear she found in the basement called Chauncey. As Alice's behaviour becomes more and more concerning, Jessica intervenes but begins to realise Chauncey is much more than a stuffed toy bear than she believed him to be. Overall, this was yet another disappointing film for me. It had potential that it didn't quite tap into. I really was interested in a horror film exploring the imaginary friend thematics. the idea that they are entities that exist in a different realm. But this film basically showed us this for about 15 minutes, and it honestly felt like a waste. It seemed like the film was building up to it, and that we were going to get this in-depth and detailed perspective in that world, with loads of sequences and potentially Easter eggs for future films. But it honestly went nowhere. When it did go somewhere, it just sort of ended before we really knew what was going on. They really said, well, I guess we'll never know, and left it at that. What a shame. Overall, I would give Imaginary a solid 4 out of 10. Some of the horror aspects were good, and the concept was pretty interesting, but the end execution and lack of potential made this an underwhelming and disappointing watch. Moving on to the next film I'm going to review, which is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Directed by Wes Ball, this takes place several generations into the future. Apes have become the dominant species, whilst humans have become reduced to living in the shadows. A young ape, Noah, undertakes a harrowing journey that will lead him to question the events of the past, as well as the choices that need to be made to define a future for apes and humans alike. Overall, I actually believe that this new series of Planet of the Apes films have the potential to be just as grand and epic as the previous trilogy. This film was great, but felt more like a stepping stone for the next films. I think Noah is a great likeable protagonist that is very curious about the world in which he lives in. I think on the juxtaposing end of this, Proximus Caesar certainly made for an intimidating villain. I love his obsession with the Roman Empire and the attire he wore to show that. I thought the landscapes of this film were striking, but yet also haunting, as a reminder of humanity's previous dominance of the world, now crumbling and overruled by nature and the apes. I do feel like this film is one big tease for what's coming next, dropping subtle breadcrumbs and hints throughout. A surprise tool that will help us later type of situation. Overall, I would give Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a solid 8 out of 10. While I enjoyed this film a lot, as well as the acting and the visual work, I still feel like the previous trilogy and its films alone were stronger than this. But as I mentioned previously, this film is one big setup for what I imagine is a Battle of the Apes film. The next film I'm going to review is the A24 film Civil War. Directed by Alex Garland, in the near future, a group of war journalists attempt to survive while reporting the truth as the United States stands on the brink of civil war. Overall, this was definitely not what I was expecting. It's interesting that we purely follow the journalistic perspective instead of the political division. I thought Kirsten Dunst was a decent lead protagonist. Feels like it's been a long while since I've seen her in a lead role. I think the whole sequence with Jesse Plemons was one of the best moments of the film. It was so uncomfortable and tense, a fearful moment. This film definitely exploits the callous nature of journalism, and also the protagonists too, but I guess they have no impartiality. You can't help but think when watching this film that this is pretty fucked up, especially the ending of the film. Overall, I'd give Civil War an 8.25 out of 10. It was a great watch, always felt tense throughout, some of the performances were fantastic, but I would warn you that the very nature of this film, and certainly the way the protagonists act in certain situations, could be considered disturbing to some. And finally, the last film I'm going to review is Late Night with the Devil. Directed by Cameron and Colin Cairns, a live broadcast of a late night talk show in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. Overall, I found this to be a really interesting and entertaining horror film, which had a cool concept behind it. I'm happy to see Daniel Desmalchier get a lead role in this. It's refreshing to see someone different getting a chance to be in the limelight. He did a great job of portraying a talk show host. I liked how it felt as if we were genuinely watching a late 70s late night show, with the use of camera filters as well as the mockumentary style, getting exclusive behind the scenes on set with the protagonists. The tone of this film was very eerie, uncomfortable in places, and completely made you feel glued to your seat. Kind of the exact opposite to most late night talk shows. You can certainly feel how atmospheric this feels as well as the tonal shift when things get darker and more unsettling. You know deep down that once the scary scenes end, you feel that sense of dread knowing something way worse is about to unfold. Overall, I would give Late Night with the Devil an 8.75 out of 10. It felt dark, earthy, unsettling, and the end of this film is quite unexpected. I definitely think this would be a great Halloween watch, and certainly has an authentic feel to it. So in conclusion, those are my thoughts and ratings on these particular films that I've seen, but what do you think? Comment down below your ratings on these films and give your reasons why. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!